One of the fruits of the celebration of the 400th anniversary of Caceres as a diocese in 1995 has been the Caceres Mission Aid Program. Through this program, the Archdiocese sends priests to different dioceses in the Philippines and other parts of the world. It was on May 27, 1997, 25 years ago, during a monthly assembly of priests, when Most Reverend Leonardo Legaspi, OPDD, and 79 priests voted to formalize our sending of priests, which had started in 1992, and called this the Caceres Mission Aid Program. During the time of Archbishop Legaspi, the Archdiocese sent to the Philippine Dioceses of Cabanatuan, Daet, Ligmanan, Virac, and the Prelature of Batanes, and to the Archdiocese of Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Archdiocese of Caceres in St. Lucia, to the Archdiocese of Kingston and Diocese of Montego Bay, Jamaica, and the Dioceses of Regina, Canada, Hsinchu, Taiwan, Townsville, Australia, and Gizo, the Solomon Islands. Today, with Most Reverend Rolando J. Triaterona, OCD, DD, the Archdiocese sends missionary priests to the Archdiocese of Caceres, St. Lucia, Archdiocese of Wellington, and Diocese of Christchurch in New Zealand, Dioceses of Regina, Canada, Hsinchu, Taiwan, Pago Pago, American Samoa, Dioceses of Green Bay, Greensburg, Ogdensburg, Phoenix, Reno, and Richmond, USA. The Archdiocese sends priests as an expression of gratitude for the gift of faith. This is part of the mission cooperation of the Universal Church. The Diocesan missionary priests help in the evangelization, but they are also helped in their ongoing formation. From the year 2000 to 2012, the Archdiocese of Caceres sent a total of 10 priests to the Diocese of Gizo, Solomon Islands in the South Pacific. I was the third missionary priest sent to the said diocese. I was assigned as a parish priest in a place called the Shortlands Islands. It is near the autonomous region of Bougainville, Papua New Guinea. I was there from December 2004 to January 2009. The distance from my parish assignment to the seat of the diocese in Gizo is 151 kilometers. It is a 41-minute trip by a plane or 4-hour trip by a 30 horsepower outboard motor boat with 3 people on fine weather days. During the last 3 hours of the trip from Gizo, there is no island where travelers can stop over. In the middle of this 3-hour trip, there is no sight of land. The boat driver is guided only by a compass. This time, for those who can afford a GPS. If the weather is not good and the boat is loaded, the usual 5 or 6-hour trip can become a 9-hour trip. I can no longer remember the number of times I traveled in the Solomon Sea from Gizo to the Shortlands Islands and vice versa. But I can still remember the violent waves which seemed to be attacking us when the current was very strong. During my trip, during my time, ships came only 3 or 4 times a year. They brought students back home for vacations and brought them again to schools after vacations. These same ships brought cargoes from Gizo and copra and marine products to Giso.
Solomon Islands had only 18% Catholics out of 600,000 people. In my place of assignment, majority were Catholics, about 4,500. The parishioners were scattered in 13 different villages in 9 different islands. I had 2 groups of parishioners. The native inhabitants are called Alu people or Shortlands people, who are Melanesians with dark skin and curly hair. They share the lands with the immigrants from Kiribati Islands or Gilbert Islands. They are called Gilbertese. The resettlement of the Gilbertese, which started in 1954 and ended in 1971, was undertaken to provide new homes for the people of Gilbert's Islands, where poor soils and low rainfall had caused famines. The scheme was possible in the past because both the Gilbert's Islands and the Solomon Islands were administered by Britain's Western Pacific High Commission. These people from Kiribati are Micronesians with brown skin and waved straight hair. There are 2 villages for the Gilbertese and the rest for the native Alu people or the Shortlands Islanders.
The Alo support themselves by fishing and making copra. The Gilbertese recreate their original lifestyles, building large gathering halls, singing and dancing, fishing and hunting crocodiles for their skin. The traditional diet of the people is not distinguished as a breakfast, lunch or dinner, which is eaten as it is available. Rice was important. Most eat only twice a day. Breakfast in the villages is tea and biscuit or tea and root crops, no snacks. Before I left for Solomon Islands, one advice given to me by Archbishop Tito Iliana, who was then the nuncio to the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea, that stuck to my mind was to always eat on time and to eat vegetables in order not to have malaria. I followed the advice. I never contracted malaria. Both Alo and the Gilbertese have their own native language. Most young people speak the lingua franca, Pidgin. Most old people speak only their native language. Masses were in English and songs were in their native languages. I communicated to them in Pidgin and some local familiar words that they spoke. In Pidgin, Pikinini means children, most probably from the Spanish Pequeños Niños. Calico means clothes or dress, probably from chaleco, which means blazer. Solomon Island society is in general male-dominated. The Alo people are dominated by adult males. Decision-making and leading the community are reserved for adult males, while for the Gilbertese people, women enjoy leadership roles. During feasts, all males are served first in Alo communities, while adult females enjoy the same courtesy that is given to men in Gilbertese culture. Alo villages are led by chiefs. They are the respected leaders of the community. The leader of the chief is called a paramount chief, the first among equals. They are assisted by elders as they lead. Some of the elders, consultants of chiefs, serve as village catechists. Chiefs are not elected, the position is inherited. They are the descendants of the warriors in the past who ruled the shortland. They are considered the traditional owners of the land and the sea. The chiefs and their families belong to the ruling class or nobility. The parish priest is also considered as one of the chiefs. The seat of the parish is called Mila Mission Station, located in an island called Pupurang. It is an island that has been leased to the church for 100 years. It was developed by the Maris, later run by the Dominicans, and then entrusted to diocesan priests. It has two small villages, a church building, a clinic, a vocational school for females with less than 30 students, a primary school with less than 40 pupils, and a kindergarten. During the Second World War, the parish station and the whole island were developed into a Japanese naval headquarters. Wartime artifacts like metal and cement bunkers, searchlight, radar, guns, planes are still found in the island. Sunken planes are at the bottom of the bay near the church. Some of the war relics end in the church. The base of the Japanese searchlight has been used as the base of the altar table. Some bullet cases have been used as flower bases inside the church. The water system built by the Japanese is still existent. We use the water for washing and cleaning. Through our corrugated roof and water tanks, we collected drinking rainwater. I cooked my food. I received seafoods, root crops, vegetables, and fruits from people. There were no markets in the Shortland Islands. They only had small retail stores with limited goods. There was no way to keep food for a long time, for there was no electricity.
We used solar panels and generators to recharge our batteries for our radios and lights. The parish had a generator which could be used for 3 to 4 hours at night. If we had enough diesel, we watched Filipino or Nigerian telenovelas with English subtitles. With the generator, we sponsored benefit dances or film shows during Christmas and Easter breaks to raise funds. The parish generator was used at night or evening celebrations. We did not need sound system for our daily and Sunday masses because of the quietness of the place. The place was free from noise pollution. It was only the sound of the waves that we heard all the time.
The work for the church, which was abandoned in 1997 due to the defective church building structure, was restarted. And in 1997, 1 year before I left the Solomon Islands, we started to use the new church. For most people, the church or chapel was the center of the village life. The catechist rang the bell of the church or chapel bells, and people came for morning and evening prayers. The prayers were led by the catechist. Left pews were occupied by women and girls, and the right pews were occupied by men and boys. I joined the prayers and said Mass in the morning. Once a week, I taught Christian values at secondary school across the bay and at the aforementioned vocational school for girls and primary school at the parish station. And when teachers did not come on time from vacation or from seminars in town because of the transportation problem, I volunteered to teach English, handwriting, and letter cutting to primary school pupils. I toured all the villages once a month with a head or assistant catechist who also served as boat driver. It was during these tours that I heard confessions, celebrated masses, officiated weddings and baptisms. Most people attended mass. There was no other activity in most villages during the priest's visit. Classes were suspended for religious activities. For them, the Mass was the most important activity. When the priest visited, they prepared themselves. They contributed gasoline for the boat for the visit. And they brought food for me and the catechist who served at the Mass and other sacraments. Some built rectories or priest houses in their villages where we could stay during our visits. Others opened their houses for the priests and companions. There were 2 villages without chapels and with only 1 family each, which I visited only once during my 4 years in the parish because of the distance. With the help of the village chiefs and elders, many of the plans and programs of the parish were actualized. They encouraged their people to support us. They donated and sold logs from their lands in less expensive prices. Some of these chiefs organized their villages or villagers in carrying the timbers and bringing sand and gravel for the church. We recruited ordinary people, especially the adult males, to be Sunday school teachers or catechists or village prayer leaders. We supported the women's group to empower other women. When I introduced women as leaders in one of the villages, there was an objection from the village chief. That was something new. That was something they could not accept. I talked to the chief about it. Later, he allowed females to be ministers in the church. I enjoyed the support of the Dominican sisters who ran the vocational school in the mission station. They corrected me when I mispronounced native words. We got the young to evangelize. We introduced youth encounter. We trained young people and encouraged some of them to enter the seminary. We encouraged young people to join the World Youth Day in Sydney. I was the priest in charge of the delegation from the diocese, which later included 10 young people coming from our parish. And we came back from Sydney, organized and hosted the Diocesan Youth Days in the parish. The event welcomed non-Christian and non-Catholic participants. Some of the difficult experiences in the missions were related to transportation and communication. Going to my parish from the seat of the diocese was either by plane or boat. The flight was once a week. Because of the distance among island villages and between island provinces, sea travels were difficult. Pacific Ocean is not always peaceful. Our boat capsized once when it hit the reef when we were trying to pass through a man-made passage going to a village. People watching us from afar thought that I had died. Fortunately, all were safe. Because of the lack of the means of communication due to the absence of electricity in my parish assignment, I received the news that my grandmother had died only after 2 months. I had internet access only when I was in the seat of the diocese or in the capital. And when a tsunami triggered by a magnitude 8.1 earthquake hit the Sololmon Islands on April 2, 2007, Holy Monday, I only had an opportunity to inform the mission director in Caceres, that time Father Andrew Recepcion, on Good Friday that year. The fact that I could not communicate at once to inform my relatives and friends what had happened to me and be informed by my parishioners what happened to them made the events more traumatic. These difficulties that I experience are nothing compared to the difficulties faced by numerous missionaries in the past, starting from St. Paul and those who traveled from Europe to come and bring the good news to our ancestors.
I left the Diocese of Giso years ago. I am glad that one of those whom we met and taught is now a priest of the diocese. My boat driver is now a responsible family man, married to one of the active volunteers during our time in the parish.
The history of missions continues because those who discover the beauty of and joy in the good news could not contain this joy and thus share it with others.